Welcome to Ask Us Marketing, A.U.M. I'm your host, Kalli Fedusenko of Kalli Collective. Kalli Collective is a digital marketing agency focused on building relationships between financial advisors and their target audience using data to create websites, content, and advertising. We build relationships first and grow your numbers second. If that's an approach that resonates with you, then sign up to get our emails for helpful tips. And you can, for helpful tips, wow, I'm blanking today, and or visit our website at the QR code below to learn more about us. This episode is brought to you by the FPA Financial Planning Association. The FPA is a great resource center providing education, support, and networking opportunities for financial advisors like you. So today, if your copy isn't converting, your audience isn't connecting. Our guest today helps financial advisors find their voice and use it to generate leads, deepen client relationships, and yes, close more sales without sounding like a salesperson. If you've ever stared at a blank cursor trying to write your website, email, or bio, this episode is for you. Please welcome with me Derek Pollard of Constellar Creative.
Hey,
Hi.
Kalli. It's great to be back. Thank you
It's
so much. I'm
great to
really
have
looking
you.
forward to today's conversation. I also want to take a moment to thank Ben Lewis and all of the team members at FPA for all the incredible work you're doing to support shows like this. You're making the industry better every day. Thanks.
Absolutely. Okay, we have a question. How to build networking? Question. We're going to be talking more about writing than networking today. In fact, my first question for you, Derek, what would you say to the advisor who says, I'm spending time writing, but it doesn't always feel like I'm bringing in new clients? Why is it that the words I use seem to have such a big impact on whether people trust me and want to work with me?
Well, this actually does, and Ganesh, I want to thank you for the question, does touch upon networking to a
Yeah.
certain degree. There's a
Okay.
lot of overlap here.
Yeah.
Um, I think quite often there's a sense we start using words like marketing and messaging, copywriting, and advisors' eyes start to glaze over. In the same way, that can happen when they start to sound like they're talking to other advisors to their clients,
Mm-hmm.
right? Their clients start to feel a little mystified about what's going on. So, one of the things that you can do right at the start is just to check yourself, right?
Yeah.
To make sure that you've identified your audience properly, to make sure that you're listening before anything else, and to be thinking about ways to connect to, we'll get to this in a minute, the one person that you're looking to connect with at any given moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's often really discouraging. Kelly, you and I have talked about this so
Mm-hmm.
many times, to be looking, just like you said, at a blank screen or a blank piece of paper, thinking, okay, I've got to turn this into something that's going to
Mm-hmm.
resonate, not just say something, but actually move my audience to take action.
Right.
That can be so daunting.
Yeah.
So, one of the biggest things that you can do right at the outset is just to take a step back, to acknowledge that this is an important task. And although we can sometimes make it look and sound pretty easy,
Yeah.
just like your clients know, they're not financial experts. They've come to you for that. The same thing is true with your marketing and your messaging. It's really, really important to remember this is a pretty complicated endeavor, and there's steps you can take to uncomplicate it for yourself so that when you do step up to the plate with what you have to say, you're creating a connection. And Ganesh, this gets to your question.
Yeah.
That's what you're aiming to do. You're aiming to build genuine connection with people, not just say what they want to hear, not just show up where they are, but
Mm-hmm.
truly and earnestly attempt to have a conversation with them.
Absolutely. I love that conversation. Because what would you say in a conversation to someone outside of your industry? I think that's the biggest
Yeah.
part that's hard. Even when I have guests on and sometimes we'll bring up terms and I'm like, okay, wait, we need to explain what that is because someone might not know. Reach versus impression versus SEO versus, I actually forgot the term. There's one for AI now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is upending SEO as we know it. It gets really easy. I
Mhm.
mean, listen, everyone who's joined us today knows this.
Mhm.
It's really easy to kind of gloss over those 3-letter abbreviations that are
Yeah.
endemic in the industry. They're everywhere. They're everywhere
Mhm.
we turn. And in marketing, the same thing is true. We use these terms all the time.
Right.
You just want to, again, give yourself the opportunity to put yourself in the shoes of your prospect or your client
Mm.
who likely either has a limited understanding of that concept or who you risk turning off immediately because you're using all of this language that doesn't empower them. It doesn't make them seem
Mm.
smart and confident. It
Yeah.
makes them seem like they're missing something obvious. And
Yeah.
it's not something that you're doing intentionally. You're not going out to alienate your audience,
Right.
but it happens a lot when you start thinking in terms of marketing as
Mhm.
opposed to that relaxed approach, that professional approach you take to your client calls.
Yeah.
And that's one of the best things that you can do. It's not a switch you can flip easily, right?
Right.
If it were, you wouldn't be tuned in today. But it is an adjustment, a shift in mindset.
Yeah.
Really, all your marketing is it's a client call out loud. And the minute that you start
Mm.
approaching it that way, thinking to yourself, okay, what I'm doing here is I'm giving my prospects the opportunity to experience what my clients already know.
Mm.
You've got a roadmap in place. You've already created a structure for yourself in terms of how you communicate, how you
Yeah.
present yourself, right?
Great.
What it looks like, what it sounds like, the adjustments you make.
Yeah.
Just take that process and start to align it with speaking to prospects instead of clients.
Mm. That kind of goes into, how do you balance sounding professional versus like an authentic human?
In the
And
age
then
of AI,
also,
is there such a thing at this point?
who even knows? And then also not sounding like every other advisor out there. I have
Yeah.
seen a shift of, it used to be a bunch of wirehouses,
Yeah.
and then we had this shift to everybody doing holistic planning. And I think we're kind of stuck there, especially everybody uses those terms, comprehensive, holistic. And I remember sitting in a seminar somewhere and they were like, what does that even mean? Holistic is what a doctor is. Um,
Even
do
then,
you think that we've gone past that? Like, are we at the next phase slash trend and where the language is going to change again?
well, I think you used one of the words that has kind of replaced holistic, and that's an
Mm,
excellent question to ask. And it's an excellent question for you to ask in terms of your own messaging.
yeah.
Is this a relatable way of describing it? If you say, "Hey, I'm a holistic financial planner,"
You
what does
don't
that
use pharmaceuticals?
what does that mean? Right?
Right.
You know what it means. The industry knows what it means. Your marketing partner knows what it means. Your
Mhm.
clients and prospects, however, probably have no idea what that means because they're not sitting in on all the meetings. They're not going to the conferences. They're not having these conversations.
Right.
You want to try to translate, not try to, you want to translate every one of those sort of more slippery terms. And
Mm.
authenticity happens to be the one I think we have settled on right now, which is
Mm.
difficult because it's
Mhm.
such an important concept in the same way that holistic planning,
Mm.
such an important concept. It's just we need to be explicit about what we mean. The
Yeah.
greater clarity you bring to your messaging, the more you help your prospects understand, that's who I've been
Mhm.
looking for. Right.
Right. Confusion kills sales. That's confusion, not Confucius. Although maybe he does too. I don't know. Um, so we don't want to sound like other advisors,
Yeah.
uh, of course. What are some writing techniques
Mm.
that we can use to convert and also separate ourselves without coming up with new vocabulary? That is my biggest pet peeve. I went to a conference once. I just and I don't remember who it was. And even if I did, I wouldn't say, but they got up on stage and they were encouraging the advisors to change their titles. Everybody is a financial advisor. You are a dream architect. You help plan people's dreams. I get where they're coming from, but it's confusing. I'm like, it sounds like you make pillows. Like, how can we be creative without making things up that confuse people?
Well, that's such a great point, and it touches directly on my first suggestion.
Yeah.
Storytelling.
Mm.
Doesn't mean make-believe. That's a very important distinction, and not just for compliance reasons.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing right now, and again, we're touching on this, but
Yeah.
everyone's using AI,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are using it. A lot of people, advisors included, are using it in terms of facilitating financial planning.
Yeah.
Almost everyone's using it in terms of their day-to-day communications at this point.
Absolutely.
You want to be very careful in your use of it. It's
Mhm.
an incredible tool to use, right? But you can't just cut and paste replies to prompts, regardless of how carefully you've trained your persona or
Yeah.
your custom GPT.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that your unique voice is included and you're telling the stories that are distinct to your life experience, your values, right? What you hold dear, what's moved you, the people you admire. That's your distinguisher, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing that's going to set you apart from everyone else. The truth of the matter is, and this is again is news to no one, every advisor in their area of specialty is surrounded by other advisors who do exactly the same thing, right? And so if somebody is searching casually or actively for an advisor or a new advisor, they are going to have, pun very much intended here, a wealth of choices. What's going to set you apart? The first thing they're looking for, despite the fact that in marketing and in advising, we're talking all the time about your personality, right? The first thing people are looking for, the research is clear about this, is your expertise. People need to know you know what you're talking about.
Fair.
But if that's what you're leading with,
yeah,
you're often missing opportunities because it's the stories that come from your personal experience, which is unique to you. Nobody else has your background.
Right.
If you start to contextualize your expertise through those stories, you're doing an incredible job of reaching people and moving them, right? Not just speaking to them, but moving them gradually to take action, whether that's to follow you, connect with you, reach out to you to become a new client, right?
Yeah.
You're reaching them emotionally because you're not just talking about products and services at that point, right?
What about a new advisor? When you're saying experiences, are we talking experiences with clients or maybe just, hey, my dad was an advisor and that's why I'm doing it now?
A combination of both.
Yeah.
Right? Educational posts, informational posts, and those personal posts. And so much of the distinction you're able to make, again, comes from your life experience.
Yeah.
What are the bands you love? What are the films you enjoy watching? Goodness gracious, let's even go out another. Who are the poets you read?
I saw on your website that you are a poet, Derek. Not to take us off topic, but
it's true. And here's the interesting thing about that. And this is true for anyone who's operating in content creation, copywriting, marketing. That particular background provides you with so many additional insights, right? You just think about it. Poets, you know, when you think about poetry, even if you're gritting your teeth as we're talking about this right now, there are a couple of, generally speaking, telltale signs. They're writing in lines, not sentences. They're using the space of the page or the screen more strategically. These are great assets when you're talking about, say, composing social media posts, which need to be optimized for mobile viewing, or you're working on copy for a website, right? An about page. You're able to utilize the space of the screen in new and different ways. So interesting, right? That you wouldn't necessarily align those things, but it's a real advantage. And I'm always glad to share with advisors tips and tools that emerge from that experience too. But tell your own stories. And if you are a new advisor just starting out,
Mhm.
you've still got a lifetime to draw on. So by all means, dip into that well. What you're
Yeah.
going to be doing when you
Mm.
start to talk about your life interests along with your professional interests, you're going to be letting your prospects get to know you. And
Mm.
that is going to allow you to build trust. And Ganesh, this gets back to your question again about networking.
Mm.
Personalize the experience and make sure your audience feels seen and heard.
Mm. And also something you said kind of brings up a point, like drawing on the poetry background. It's hard to see those things when it's just you working alone. You know, I think that is one of the reasons it's really helpful if you can bring in an outside party who can help you connect those dots. Like, oh, you have this background in this. That's really interesting. Here's how we
Yeah.
can apply it.
Absolutely true.
Mm-hmm.
Kalli, that is such an important piece of advice. And it was, again, something I think we're going to get to in
Yeah.
a minute or two. But being able to draw on an outside, even if it's a set of eyes and ears, right?
Mm-hmm.
An objective perspective. One of the hardest things, thank you, Lauren.
Mm-hmm.
One of the hardest things that you can do, that any of us can do, that includes
Yeah.
those of us who do this professionally, is to edit our own work, to
Mm.
see the things objectively that our clients and prospects are seeing and hearing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it is invaluable to bring on an outside, an outside advisor.
Yeah.
If nothing else, as advisors, having that added layer of support can make all the difference.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, let's talk about mistakes. All right. I make them, other people make them.
We
What
don't
are
have
some
enough
of
time to cover all mine.
what are the biggest writing mistakes that you've seen on advisor websites or emails or maybe even social media content? And what are your suggestions for how to fix them?
Again, so much of this comes simply from not being able to see our own patterns in terms of how we
Mm-hmm.
communicate. Um, I think we're just going to draw a line under this and keep coming back to it.
Yeah.
It just is so helpful to be able to have another set of eyes and ears alongside you when you're
Yeah.
working.
Yeah.
Um, Websites, uh, a lack of clarity, a sameness in terms of the imagery and the copy,
Mm-hmm.
right? I can't tell you how many advisor sites, and there are reasons for this. We'll gloss over them for now, but how many advisor sites look and sound exactly alike?
Mm-hmm.
This is why personalization is so important and why knowing your audience of one is critical.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of sites that come to mind immediately: Jane Meafham's,
Mm.
Elgin Financial Advisors. The minute you go to that site, you see immediately who it's for. Brian
Mm.
Hune with Reflective Wealth, same thing. The
Mm.
minute you go to the site, you see, yes, this is who I've been looking for.
Mm.
Maintaining that clarity and
Mm.
ensuring that your messaging is consistent
Mm.
across platforms
Yeah.
and across pages on sites, posts on social media, blog
Right.
articles, all of that together sends a clear message about who you are and why you are the right advisor for the person you're looking to reach. So,
Mm-hmm.
knowing your audience of one, that's not to say you're investing all of this time, effort, and energy to market to a single person,
Mm-hmm.
but you kind of are if you're doing it right. You're marketing to your next client.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the next client after that. And so knowing your ideal client profile, here's one of those 3-letter abbreviations in marketing, your ICP, everyone, is so important because it allows you to begin to form an image of that one person in each case. And that one person, they're going to fall within that demographic and psychographic range. They're going to share interests. They're going to have they're going to be of a certain age. They're going to have a certain amount of investable assets. They're going to be at a particular point in their career, but you're not writing to a single mother who's 45, who's thinking, okay, what does college my college savings account look like in relation to my retirement investments at this point?
Yeah.
You're writing to the one woman who needs your help right now. And she has a name. She lives somewhere. She has a specific set of interests. That's the person that you want your messaging to be directed toward every time.
I saw a comment here, and I'd like to get your feedback on it. We should make some mistakes in our writing. How do you feel about, to prove you're not AI, how do you feel about, dropping a couple of mistakes in the writing?
Now, isn't this interesting?
Yeah.
Because along with being a poet, I'm also a university professor and have been for like ever.
So you cringe a little bit?
Well, here's the weird thing.
Yeah.
There are two camps. There are prescriptivists when it comes to grammar, when it comes to language and its evolution. Here are the rules. We need to abide by the rules. The rules set this out specifically. And so this is how this works.
Right.
It's whom, not who. You can end a sentence on a preposition, all of these.
Which is really hard sometimes.
Well, and also, which has never actually been a grammatic necessity, right? That's founded on a myth. It was never the case that we were not meant to do that.
I'm claiming that.
Well, we're going to go back and review your transcripts, make sure everything's right then, Kalli. Here's the thing. I'll use polite language, but the word I usually use in this case starts with an F and ends with a K. It's what we do.
Funky.
Exactly. You want to funk it up a bit. Because we're human beings, we make mistakes. And if we are making mistakes and are dedicated to reflecting and learning from them, it's how we build towards success. It's not, hey, I have this idea and ta-da, it worked. Usually it's, hey, I have this idea. Wow, there's a misstep. Oh, I got it wrong there. Ooh, I want to do it better there.
Yeah.
Every iteration moves you closer to that goal that you have in mind. And so it's not a question of going out and deliberately funking it up. What it is a question of is recognizing it is going to happen. We all have our days. I find that to be one of the most encouraging things about social media, at least the social platforms that are not toxic on a minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day basis, like LinkedIn on a positive side, right? One of the best social networks out there.
Yeah.
You're seeing people who, again, are personalizing their messaging. They're not thinking in terms of brand. They're not thinking in terms of sale. They're thinking, hey, this just happened to me, and I'd like to help it not happen to you. Here's what it looks like if it does happen to you, and here are some of the steps that you or we can take. If we don't make mistakes, we're not learning and we're not growing. And so again, I'm not encouraging you, everyone, hey, go rush out and make every mistake you can.
Right.
But rather accept the fact that that's part of the process.
Yeah.
And if you find yourself in a situation where it's a mistake that's public, then make sure that you are, that you acknowledge that and that you are, give your audience an opportunity to see you learning.
Yeah.
That's a really big deal.
And that brings me to this idea, thoughts, opinion I have. Progress, not perfection. And it's something we were talking about even on our own side before we went live is, even on our own marketing, and we're like, oh, I really want to do this and this and this. And I have clients that are the same way. And I think it can be really easy to get stuck, especially if you've hired an outside source, to be like, this has to be perfect before it can go live. And I think we should reframe that is progress. We're aiming for progress. We're not aiming for perfection. It takes steps to get there. It's not going to be all at once.
No, it's absolutely. I mean, listen, if we were aiming for perfection, we'd start over because I have a ring light in my glasses. I would have made that adjustment, right?
Right.
Perfection is one of the most dangerous myths that we can subscribe to. Just get it out of your thinking. It is standing in the way of everything that you are aiming to achieve in your life and your career. Just
Yeah.
set it aside. It is a phenomenal aspiration. Aspire
Mm-hmm.
to be as good as you can be. But if perfection is your benchmark, you are
Yeah.
going to fall short every time.
Yeah.
And what's more important, helping your clients? And again, we're talking about our ideal client profile.
Mm-hmm.
Advisors, that's mine. You got
Mm-hmm.
into this business because you really care and are invested in
Mm-hmm.
helping others succeed and gain confidence, right?
Yeah.
That's your mission.
Yeah.
That's wired into your DNA as an advisor. You want to make sure that that's what you're communicating and conveying, and you're not standing in the way, and you're not holding yourself or others to an impossible standard. The truth of
Yeah.
the matter is, there is no such thing in our sphere as human beings as perfection. We can get really good at something, really good at something. It's never going to be perfect. And
Yeah.
one of the marks that you are continuing to learn and grow and evolve is that you look back at those high points of yours and you think, oh, I can do that better now.
Mm-hmm.
I can do that even better. Getting back to one of the questions you had asked about some of those tells when I visit, when I do an audit for a
Yeah.
client in terms of, hey, maybe we want to think about this.
Mm-hmm.
Something else. If you find if your default, if you find yourself using phrases like we deliver, I can do, our services provide,
Yeah.
the message that you may unintentionally be sending there, and I'm not saying first person is taboo.
Yeah.
We do, again, want to present ourselves to our prospects and clients, but it is very important to lead with you. Second person is a major, major victory when we're thinking about how we can reframe our messaging and how we can avoid some of those pitfalls. Because if it's all about you, right? If it's all about me, then you is secondary.
Yeah.
And that's not what I want to be telling clients and prospects.
Right.
You're the most important aspect of all of this. So just another one of those small things that you can be looking for as you're reviewing your own content.
I think it makes it a little more conversational too. Because
absolutely.
Yeah. In a conversation, I'm going to be talking about, oh, how are you, Derek? And I heard you did this, rather than I did this and I did that and I can help you do this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not the question. When somebody asks you, hey, what do you do? It's really easy to answer, well, I do this, I do that. That's not what they're asking you. They're asking you, how does what you do help other people?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Let's talk about someone who doesn't have a lot of time. I mean, we're all business owners to one degree or another, and our days are jam-packed. What's, some easy improvements that they can implement on the fly real quick? Like,
listen, this is going to sound self-serving. You don't have to work with me, right? Work with Kalli. If the two of us can't help you, right?
Yeah.
We'll recommend you to somebody in our trusted circle who can.
Yeah.
But outsource.
Yeah.
Right. Whether that's on a done with you level, whether it's, hey, I want to start with a done with you to get me to the point where this is just kind of a check-in. I mean, that's so much of the work I do with advisors are those sort of strategy and check-in calls.
Yeah.
Or if you have 60 minutes a month, right? 2 30-minute calls, 1 or 2 30-minute strategy sessions, you're generating ideas. Again, you don't have to start with a blank legal pad or a blank screen.
Right.
Almost all of you, if not all of you, have mobile phones. On those mobile phones is a voice recording app. If not, you can down one very easily. Use it. Don't just jot stuff down. Don't just record ideas that you have. Review them. But it's amazing if that becomes the focus of a strategy call. You're able to hand off those ideas to me in 30 minutes or less, and you're getting a month's or a quarter's worth of content out of that. So outsourcing just is tremendously, tremendously valuable. And just as with advisors, we're basically giving you the same advice you give your clients all the time. It's a long-term investment. So don't be impatient. right? Don't feel like, hey, I've got 30 days to make sure that I have 30,000 followers and 20,000 new connections on LinkedIn. If you've
Right.
got $200,000 in ad spend a month, great.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get you rolling in 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're looking to do this organically with limited ad spend, just be aware of the fact that your timeline is likely longer than you're thinking right now,
Mm-hmm.
or is longer than you have experienced to this point. And test
Yeah.
repeatedly. Look
Yeah.
to see what's resonating, and don't give up on something if the first time you post it, it doesn't necessarily resonate.
Yeah.
You can go back over time. If you are creating blog articles or having them
Mm-hmm.
created for you, same with social media posts, newsletters, you are building your own personalized content library,
Mm-hmm.
not a Mad Lib that you're buying from someone else where you're just filling in the blanks, but
I
content.
love that analogy. Oh my gosh.
Content. Listen, I love a good Mad Lib. I love even more though. And when you're building your content bank, I
Yeah.
love a good choose your own adventure. You're
Mm.
in control of determining where that content is coming and where it's going. And you can make those adjustments over time because you have created that content in your own
Yeah.
voice. So you build a year's worth of content on your own or with your marketing partner,
Mm.
you've got your next year's content, a third of it, a half of it, two-thirds of it already in the bank that
Yes.
you can repurpose and recycle. So be thinking about that to think
Mm.
strategically as far as your messaging goes. Save all of your content, organize it
Mm.
clearly so you can scan it or you and your marketing partner have easy access to it, and go to the well as often as you
Yeah.
can.
And regarding the personal stuff,
Yeah.
outsourcing, yes, so helpful. But you do still have to put in some time on your side. You have to show up to those calls. You have to give us those personal details that we can work with.
Yes.
It isn't just a clean handoff. If you want it to be
Exactly.
personalized, and it's the personalized that's going to move the needle.
Yeah.
So it takes a little bit of both there.
Well, it does, and to that point, again, just as I'm encouraging you to listen to others so
Mm-hmm.
that you can, and I always refer to writing as listen outward,
Yeah.
you also want to start listening to yourself.
Mm.
So many advisors that I talk to have admitted to me,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
I don't have those stories.
Mm.
You're going to be amazed when you start listening to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Just take your next 3 client calls. And don't just
Mm-hmm.
listen to your clients, but listen to yourself. You are going to be amazed at how many stories you tell and how
Yeah.
engaging those stories are because they're yours, right?
Hmm.
Maybe it's a loss. Maybe
Yeah.
it's a gain. Maybe it's an unexpected success. Maybe it's a working relationship that you develop. Maybe you rubbed elbows with someone.
Yeah.
I just walked by a celebrity on Wall Street the other day as I was going to the
Oh.
ferry. That's a story. That's something that you can
Wait, is that a real
share.
story, Derek?
That is a real story.
Are you
Yes.
gonna name drop? Because now I'm curious.
I'm not. I'm going to,
I would.
just as in the moment, I respected their space. I'm going to do so here. But it is amazing in our day-to-day lives how many
Mm.
stories we develop, how many narratives that we want. You tell yourself these stories all the time, or you review them, or you hear stories, you overhear stories.
Mm.
All of that is potential content. And so
Mm.
one of the things, Kalli, to your point that you can
Yeah.
start doing is, again, become more intentional. Listen to
Mm.
yourself along with listening to others so that you can activate all of those ideas that
Yeah.
exist, even if you can't see them yourself, even if you think, geez,
Yeah.
this is a pretty boring life, right? I mean, I help others and I'm really excited and proud of that. And
Yeah.
I have these accomplishments. Don't forget, some of the biggest laughs you've likely ever had in your life are from comedians and television shows
Mm.
that purport to either be extraordinarily boring or feature nothing happening.
That's so true. Yeah.
So again, once you start to pay attention to your own life, you're going to find it is just full of opportunities for you to
Mm.
connect with other people.
Yeah. That's a great closing note. That's great high place to leave us.
Well, Kalli, again, I can't thank you enough. I want to thank the people who dropped questions and comments in the chat.
Yeah.
And again, I want to thank the FPA. What a phenomenal job you're doing
Mm.
in supporting shows like A.U.M. So thank you.
Absolutely. And if you are watching, QR code in the corner of the screen will take you to Derek's website. And if you're listening, Derek, do you want to spell out or sound out your website so our listeners can find you?
I can totally do that. Yes, it's constellarcreative.com. Constellar, like constellation, Constellar. I always have to like quadruple check myself in my own head as I'm spelling something. Talk about a lifelong educator, everybody, right? Constellar Creative, 2 words, creative, everyone's going to get.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, either the Constellar Creative company page or my personal profile. And don't hesitate to send me a DM or an email. I'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely awesome. I love it. And I need to check the calendar before I can tell everybody what we're doing next week. Is it a holiday? I don't know. Let's find out.
Start of May.
It is Cinco de Mayo next Monday.
Hey, fantastic.
However, we are still having A.U.M.
Even better. What a great way to celebrate the day. I love it.
But I don't have a topic on the calendar, which is why I didn't remember. So I will have something by Monday. Make sure to join us. It'll probably be me just talking about something hopefully interesting, maybe not. And if it isn't interesting, you can always drop off. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Derek, for sharing with us with all of the tips on words and how we can convert and be ourselves. And for everyone watching, have a great week.